Good morning, Sangha. Can everyone hear me well? Okay. Translations? Okay. Okay. It's been a beautiful 2 days that we've had. The sun was full, and I had a chance to really enjoy the fall without being too cold. And the sisters kept telling me, "Oh, the rain's coming." So I really I've been really enjoying the sun and sort of bracing myself for the rain. Anyhow, I hope you had a wonderful morning and had an opportunity to enjoy a bit of the sun and walking back and forth in our hamlets, whether it's Upper Hamlet, Lower Hamlet, or New Hamlet. Taking some time to just come back to yourself and enjoy your steps and your breathing. Today I am wearing my OI jacket because this winter we have a series of Dharma talks, and we are sharing about the 14 mindfulness trainings of the Order of Interbeing. And the Order of Interbeing, or OI members, they wear this jacket as part of their uniform. So the first time I saw this jacket, my eyes got caught right away. I really liked the cut and the simplicity of the jacket. And, it's quite simple, clean lines, no frills. So I really liked it. And I asked a sister, "Oh, where can I get one of those?" I didn't know I didn't know there was a journey you had to take before you could wear one of these. And I didn't know you had to be an OI member in order to wear one. So you can say, maybe I took the 14 mindfulness trainings in order to wear the jacket. It's like when I was younger, you saw the cheerleaders or, the basketball players, and you want, not that you want to be a cheerleader or a whatever sports team that you like, but just for the uniform. Some of you might feel the same about the monastic robe, I don't know. But when I finally took the 14 mindfulness trainings, it was when I was already a monastic. 2 years into your monastic life, then it used to be like that. Then we start taking the 14 mindfulness trainings as well, because the 14 mindfulness trainings, they're both for lay members and monastics. So they are a fourfold order, meaning laymen, laywomen, monastics, monks, and nuns. And so when I first took the 14 mindfulness trainings as a monastic, and I finally earned the right to wear the jacket, I couldn't, because there was a sort of stigma for monastics wearing the OI jacket. Like if you wore the OI jacket, it meant that you were acting a bit more too mature for your monastic age. Something like that. It was mostly the elder brothers and sisters who wore the OI jacket. And today I did hesitate to put this on because I didn't want to make the statement that I'm older in the community. But I just wanted to put it on to show you what an OI jacket looked like, since we're talking about the Order of Interbeing, the 14 mindfulness trainings of the Order of Interbeing. Anyhow, it's kind of like a show and tell. a few weeks ago, one of my elder sisters, she was up to give a Dharma talk, and she also hesitated to put on this jacket. Everybody said, "Oh, you look too mature wearing that jacket." But I didn't know if mature meant you look old in physical age, or too mature meant that you're showing off that you have wisdom, or too mature meant that you are being more than you are. So I have no idea what too mature means when we wear this jacket. But today I'm very comfortable wearing it. I kind of like it. I admit it. So if you are new here today and you are curious about the history of the 14 mindfulness trainings or the Order of Interbeing and how it came about, or all of the other previous mindfulness trainings that we've been talking about this winter, you can check out our YouTube channel, Plum Village Online Monastery, to get those explanations. Today I've been asked to share about the 8th, 9th, and 10th mindfulness trainings. And at the end of each row, there's some mindfulness trainings, if we could pass them, and then we can read them together. So I'll read the 8th mindfulness training first. True community and communication. Aware that lack of communication always brings separation and suffering, we are committed to training ourselves in the practice of compassionate listening and loving speech, knowing that true community is rooted in inclusiveness and in the concrete practice of harmony of views, thinking, and speech. We will practice to share our understanding and experiences with members in our community in order to arrive at collective insight. We are determined to learn to listen deeply without judging or reacting, and refrain from uttering words that can create discord or cause the community to break. Whenever difficulties arise, we will remain in our Sangha and practice looking deeply into ourselves and others to recognize all the causes and conditions, including our own habit energies that have brought about the difficulties. We will take responsibility for all the ways we may have contributed to the conflict and keep communication open. We will not behave as a victim, but be active in finding ways to reconcile and resolve all conflicts, however small. The 9th mindfulness training, truthful and loving speech. Aware that words can create happiness or suffering, we are committed to learning to speak truthfully, lovingly, and constructively. We will only use words that inspire joy, confidence, and hope, as well as promote reconciliation and peace in ourselves and among people. We will speak and listen in a way that can help ourselves and others to transform suffering and see the way out of difficult situations. We are determined not to say untruthful things for the sake of personal interest or to impress people, nor to utter words that might cause division or hatred. We will protect the joy and harmony of our Sangha by refraining from speaking about the faults of another person in their absence, and always ask ourselves whether our perceptions are correct. We will speak only with the intention to understand and help transform the situation. We will not spread rumors nor criticize or condemn things of which we are not sure. We will do our best to speak about situations of injustice, even when doing so may make difficulties for us or threaten our safety. The 10th mindfulness training, protecting and nourishing the Sangha. Aware that the essence and aim of a Sangha is the practice of understanding and compassion, we are determined not to use the Buddhist community for personal power or profit, or transform our community into a political instrument. However, as members of a spiritual community, we should take a clear stand against oppression and injustice. We should strive to change the situation without taking sides in a conflict. We are committed to looking with the eyes of interbeing and learning to see ourselves and others as cells in one Sangha body. As a true cell in the Sangha body, generating mindfulness, concentration, and insight to nourish ourselves and the whole community, each of us is at the same time a cell in the Buddha body. We will actively build brotherhood and sisterhood, flow as a river, and practice to develop the three real powers, love, understanding, and cutting through afflictions, to realize collective awakening. Maybe we listen to one sound of the bell. You can just breathe with these trainings. You don't have to understand them or agree or disagree, but we just take a few moments to come back to our body, come back to our breathing, and enjoy the present moment. I thought these three trainings were quite a lot to cover in one Dharma talk. And since we've just read them, you can see why. So I thought I would start with the 9th mindfulness training, truthful and loving speech. I quite like in the introduction of the 14 mindfulness trainings, there's the last line. It says, the 14 mindfulness trainings help us to cultivate concentration and insight, which free us from fear and the illusion of a separate self. And the idea of being free from fear and the illusion of a separate self has always spoken to me. And in practicing these mindfulness trainings, the more I practice and put them into practice or reflect upon them in my daily life, the more I can recognize the different kinds of fears or the kinds of wrong perceptions that lie at the base, that are the foundation of my actions in body, speech, or mind. So it's like an endless practice because there's so many fears. And recently I got in touch with actually one fear, one kind of fear. I'll tell you about it. So one day I had this dream, and in the dream I was sleeping, and a sister came in to the room as I was waking up, and she said, "Oh, last night I heard you listen to really loud music," and I said, "What?" And I said, "Oh, it must have been because I sleep with my device next to look at the clock." And I said, "Oh, my device must have turned on by accident." So the music was playing. And And so I woke up from this dream, and it was a very, simple dream. But I was really disturbed by it. Because I realized that in the dream I wasn't being so very truthful. And I was a bit disturbed that in my dream I could be untruthful. So in the dream, I realized I was telling a half lie, because at one point I realized the device this is in the dream, it did turn on by accident, but I chose to listen to the music. Anyways, this has a long history because, before I became a nun, I used to listen to a lot of music. And, all kinds of music, soft music, loud music, slow music, fast music. But since ordaining, it's been a very long time since I listened to music again, or had even the desire to listen to music. Because I realized in listening to music, it touched off many different seeds in me, like sadness or despair or anger, many different elements. Not all music would do that. A lot of music also touches off quite wonderful elements in me, like joy or connection or understanding of myself and others. But since becoming a nun, I had less of a need to listen to music, because I realized that listening to the music, it was the music that was constantly playing in my head then, it was kind of painting a picture, and also adding a different element to my experience, to my present moment experience, that I felt maybe was not so true to it. So I'd stopped listening to music for a long time, and and then for many years I had all of the Plum Village songs just circulate in my head. Happiness is here now. Breathing in, breathing out. Maybe we take a moment to sing one so you can have a taste. Actually, there's a song I liked recently. It's Cultivate Peace, Hour by Hour. Brother Fafien, do you know that song? Flower by flower. Yes. Can you start the song for us? And we can sing this together. Flower by flower, sow seeds of joy.
Cultivate peace, hour by hour, smile by smile, flower by flower. Sow seed of peace among hate and fear. Cultivate peace, and peace will appear. Cultivate peace, and peace will appear. Cultivate love, hour by hour, smile by smile, flower by flower. Sow seed of love among hot and cold. Cultivate love, and love will take hold. Cultivate love, and love will take hold.
Anyhow, that was the kind of music that has been playing in my head for a very long time. And so recently when I had this dream and I was just listening to loud music with a lot of bass and etc. while I was sleeping, and I'm already a nun. This is in the dream. So when I woke up from it, well, in the dream I woke up, right? And the sister asked me, "Oh, I heard you listening to loud music last night." And I thought, well, it must have been an accident. But it wasn't an accident. I mean, I did choose to listen after it. In my dream, I chose to listen after it got turned on by accident. And the funny thing is, I realized, even in my dream, I remembered that telling a half-truth was more believable than telling I don't know, than not telling a half-truth. So when I woke up, I was quite disturbed about this kind of behavior and this kind of thinking that was happening in my dream. And I realized why. Because I thought in my dream, maybe the safest place where I can be anything. I could think anything, do anything, feel anything. And who would know? Who would know what happens in my dream? Nobody would know but me. And yet, in my dream, I still had this need to protect an image of myself. In this dream, that need to tell this half-truth, and I realized it was in order to protect myself, it was still happening. So when I woke up, I thought, wow, if this is happening in my dream, what am I doing in my waking hours? So this has been on my mind quite a lot these past few months, just looking into my daily life, in my thinking, in my speech, and how if I am motivated by, if my speech or my actions are motivated by this place of fear. And it's been quite fun to observe my mind and all of the fears that still hamper me. I don't know if I want to say the word hamper, that still affect me. So I've recognized quite a lot in my speech, especially in my speech, in my waking hours these last few months. So I found myself, whenever this need to say something, to explain myself, or to explain myself, or to look a certain way, or to sound like I am a certain way, I have to take a moment and I breathe with it. And very often I cannot stop it in time, so then I end up in the last few months saying things like, "Oh, sorry, that wasn't what I meant." I didn't mean to say that. What I meant was, and then I would talk about the feelings that I was afraid that the other person may not understand or receive. Anyhow, that's been my practice for the last couple of months, and it has to do with this 9th mindfulness training, truthful and loving speech. And when I reflected on these trainings, and I thought, oh, where do I begin to share about them? Right away I had that dream come up. And then I guess what's important for me is maybe how to share this process that I've gone through in learning to recognize myself, learning to be more truthful to myself, and learning to be more loving to myself. So how can we begin to be more truthful and loving to ourselves? It's not just about talking to yourself. Oh, I have to communicate with myself. I need to listen to what I'm saying. I need to be able to talk to myself. I realize that communicating with myself, it wasn't just about talking, but it was about recognizing what was going on in myself, like recognizing what's going on in my body, in my feelings, in my perceptions, in my mental formations, in my consciousness. So what's happening in my body? Do I know what's happening in my body? Am I listening to what's happening in my body? Am I aware of what's happening in my body? There's pain maybe somewhere. There's tension maybe somewhere. Do I know how to remove the pain in my body? Do I know how to take care of the tension in my body? And what's happening in my feelings? What am I feeling right now? Do I know how to take care of the feeling that's coming up? If it's a pleasant feeling, do I know how to enjoy it? Do I know how to prolong it? If I'm angry, do I know how to recognize my anger, breathe with my anger, take my anger for a walk? Mental formations, perceptions. What kind of perceptions are happening in my mind? What kind of perceptions do I have right now? Are these perceptions nourishing me? Are these perceptions adding joy to my life? Are these perceptions helping me to be more connected with myself or with my brothers and sisters, with my family? Or do my perceptions add more separation? Isolation? Do my perceptions feed my loneliness, feed my suffering? So these are the questions that come up for me when I communicate with myself. And communicating with yourself, you can do this at any hour throughout the day. I'm sure coming to Plum Village, you have learned many different practices so far to help you to come back to your body, come back to your mind, and just to listen to what's going on. When we go walking meditation, it's an opportunity for us to communicate with ourselves, because at any moment there's so much going on in your body, in your feelings, in your perceptions. And then also at any moment there's always something you can do to take care of what's going on in your body, or in your feelings, or in your perceptions. You can always ask yourself questions like, what can I do to release the tension in my body? What can I do to calm my feelings? What can I do to quiet my thinking? What can I do to gladden my mind? You can always ask one of the brothers and sisters about how to do this, if you want to learn more how to do this in detail. So I find communicating, speech, if I want to speak well, I also have to learn how to listen well. And first of all, to listen to myself, to listen to what's going on, like I said, in the body, the feelings, perceptions, mental formations, consciousness, what's going on. And when we can listen to what's really going on in ourselves, and also when we know how to take care of all of those areas, the things that are coming up in ourselves, it becomes much easier for us to listen to others. Otherwise, sometimes it's like you're a crying baby, and the other person is a crying baby. And it's a competition, which baby can cry louder, so that it could be heard. So it's quite important that we learn how to come back to ourselves, learn the different ways to take care of ourselves, come back to ourselves and slow down enough so that we can recognize ourselves. So in our daily life, we have to create opportunities for us to slow down and to, what we say, generate stillness. It's quite important for our society nowadays for a person to know how to just come back to him or herself, to themselves, and to generate stillness. Everywhere you look, people are busy. Everywhere you look, there's a lot of busyness, there's a lot of going out of ourselves, and very, very few people know how to go in, and how to come back and to recognize themselves, to know who they are. To know what they are at that moment. And in our society, I find we have there's a word that keeps floating around recently that I keep hearing, well, in recent years, the word authentic. We want to be authentic. We want to be true to ourselves. I want to be true to myself. But what does that mean? Because very often I find when people are speaking about being authentic to oneself, there's an idea of a kind of a permanent self. The thinking behind it, it seems to me like there's a kind of self that you have to know, to get to. And sometimes I hear things like, "Oh, when I do that, I'm not true to myself. If I do that, I'm not true to myself. When I say that, I'm not true to myself. When I think like that, I'm not true to myself. Yeah, but it makes me wonder, what is your true self? And in the Buddhist teachings, every moment we are already our true self. So even if in that moment you are expressing a lot of anger, actually you're being your true self at that moment. Or you're tired, or you are whatever, however way we manifest. At each moment we are already our true self. And this is the teaching on aimlessness, on because in every moment we are manifesting everything that we are. Everything that we've ever accumulated, everything that we've ever, everything, the good, the bad, the wholesome, the unwholesome, the beneficial, the not so beneficial. Every moment we are actually manifesting the totality of ourselves. The totality of our seeds, of our potentials. The sum of our habit energies. Every moment we're manifesting the sum of our habit energies, the sum of ourselves. So there's no authentic self you need to be true to. Every moment you are already your true self. This is a very important teaching to understand. Tay often quotes L'homme est la somme de ses actes. I don't know who said that, Paul. Yeah. Can you say it louder? Because I don't know how to pronounce his name. Jean-Paul Sartre. Yeah, Tay often quotes him. L'homme est la somme de ses actes. So man is the sum of his actions. And I find this is quite good news. Because in every moment we are exposed to new and beautiful things. And or we may be exposed to not so new and not so beautiful things. But in every moment we are the sum total of everything that we are. So the sum total of who we are changes at every moment. Yeah. And I find that extremely good news. Because what it means is, if I take in more elements that I aspire to be, then eventually, or at that moment, the sum total of me already changes to whatever I want to be. If I want to be more beautiful, if I want to be more loving, if I want to be more kind, I just expose myself to it. I expose my speech to it. I expose my thinking to it. I expose my actions to it. I also expose myself to other people's speech, thinking, and action. So I'm not a mathematician. And I think when I say we are the sum, every moment we change, and the sum total of ourself changes. I was a bit nervous that the mathematicians might laugh at me and at my simple math. But I find that this has actually been my experience in my practice. What I'm trying to say is that transformation is possible, especially when we're looking at speech and our speech patterns and behaviors. When I first came to Plum Village, and I remember I attended my first Dharma sharing, and we have sharings in groups where everybody speaks from the heart. I was actually very uncomfortable. And listening to everyone share about how they felt about things, it was actually very scary for me. I didn't know how to handle it. I was like almost frozen. It's like, oh, how could she share about her sadness like that? Or how could he share about his anger like that? I was very, you can say I was a bit paralyzed in that moment, in my first Dharma sharing, just listening to everyone share. Because at that time, I felt I didn't know how to share my feelings. I remember before I came to Plum Village, every time a feeling would a strong emotion would come up, or maybe I felt anger at my parents or at my siblings. It was very difficult for me to express it. I was like, oh, it's this lump in my throat when I thought about this anger or this frustration. And I couldn't really say it because the dialogue that was happening in my mind was one of punishment. I really wanted to address my anger, but actually the way I was wanting to address it was to get the other person to know that I'm angry, and because that you've done this, and that's why I'm angry. And this dialogue, and I wanted to say it in the most punishing way. So it wasn't very helpful. And what ended up happening was I couldn't say it, because at the same time there was a part of me that didn't want to hurt the other person in return. I knew that saying it would be very hurtful. So there was a part of me that didn't want to hurt my loved ones in return. And so very often I would remain silent. You kind of cancel yourself out. Oh, you want to punish. At the same time, you don't want to punish. And then I didn't know how to speak about this feeling in a way that was constructive. So I found for many years, in not speaking about it, I ended up silencing myself. And therefore, this kind of lump developed in my throat. Sometimes your emotions, they will manifest in your body somewhere. You can, if you come back to your body, listen to your body, you can feel where you've stored a lot of tension, or you can feel where you've stored some pain, anxiety. Anxiety I find sometimes right here. But strong emotions I find I've accumulated here. Stress about not being able to do things on my shoulders. So you can have fun with coming back to your body, identifying where you store things. Your body is a storehouse of all kinds of things. So I found I couldn't speak about my feelings, and coming to Plum Village and being in Dharma sharings was, it was a new form of torture. But slowly, I felt, that just being in the circle and hearing other people share about their feelings and realizing that nobody in the circle reacted in any kind of negative way, in any condemning way, or that the circle was big enough, or it was enough to absorb what was being shared. So I thought, you can actually share about your feelings and nothing happens. No one will say anything to you in return about how they want to punish you in return with their words. Nothing happens. And so I found that slowly I was able to share a tiny bit more about how I was feeling. And I remember it took so long. Each Dharma sharing that I went to, it was like another part of myself. And even though I thought it was so big, now that I think about it, it wasn't much at all. Like it was like how I felt about the weather, But that was like how hard it was for me to speak about feelings, for instance. Or, let alone sharing about how I was sad over something, or it was not easy. But through the years, I kind of learned, slowly I learned a bit more how to express myself, how to express my feelings in this safe setting. And also the more I came back to myself, the more I learned how to speak to myself. Just recognizing the kind of thinking that goes on in my mind and saying, maybe we can do better. Or is this thinking helping me right now? I can think differently. Recognizing that I could have a choice in how I felt or how I thought or how I perceived things, and that I wasn't a victim of these thoughts or perceptions or feelings. So as I learned how to do that, I also learned how to slowly open up to my family, my blood family. And it was much easier for me than for them. Because, of course, I was exposed to the practice. I was in Plum Village, and they'd never been to Plum Village or exposed to the practice. So I could just imagine the first time I said, I love you to my parents, how shocking it was for them. Or no, I can still remember the shock on their face. Because we don't say it, we're Asian. I don't mean to stereotype, but I come from a village where it's not so traditional to say, I love you to each other, or to your parents, or to anyone. So it took a while for me to learn how to say, I was on the phone, so it's easier. I said it and I hung up right away. It took me a while longer to say it in person, so. But eventually I did. I learned how to say I love you to my mom and dad without getting all teary and emotional. I remember when I was younger, every time someone in my village, in a parent-child relationship, a parent, whether that parent says I love you to their child or the child learns to say I love you to the parent, it became this huge ordeal. Everybody got emotional, and it was like, it was quite shocking. maybe our society is a bit immune to the words "I love you" now, but I remember my first experience of it. It was, and it wasn't that long ago. It was just about 17 years ago. Yeah, it was quite challenging. But eventually, me and my family, my parents, got used to it. Got used to hearing these things and got used to saying, like, "I love you," or, "How are you today?" No, we said, "How are you?" But rarely did we respond to say exactly how we were feeling. But it took a while to train, to get used to. And I didn't speak much to my father when I was younger. Because it was like how most fathers were to their children. What the village where I came from, it wasn't like this relationship where you speak to each other much, or you would ask, "Oh, did you eat today? Did you go to school?" Things like that, questions like that you ask, and exchanges like that happen, but rarely did we speak about feelings or our thoughts on things, or what we aspire in our life, the dreams that we have. And so I'm very grateful that I became a nun and learned all these things, all the different ways that I could communicate with my father and ask him about, just how he was feeling, for starters. And, or ask my father, what's the most important thing for him to do at that moment. Questions like that I didn't know how to ask before. And I didn't know where to begin. But I think being in Plum Village, slowly, I kind of trained myself, I guess. Because you hear it all the time here. It's like, "Oh, what's your greatest joy? What's your greatest happiness?" I didn't learn how to ask those questions before I was a nun. So I was just very happy that I was able to learn and to communicate with my father in that way before he passed. However, there is one regret that I have. This summer, I had a memory come up between me and my father. I think it happened when I was 10 years old. And I remember visiting him in prison. I don't know if any of you have ever visited anyone in prison. Okay. So there's this partition, this glass, I guess, plexiglass. And you go, and the prisoner's on the other side, and you are on the visitors on one side, and the prisoners on the other side. And there's a telephone, and you have to pick it up, and you talk to each other through this phone. And so my brothers and sisters, we got to go and visit our dad in prison. So everyone took turns, and I was quite reluctant to do so, and because I was very emotional. There's this lump in my throat. And so when it was my turn, I came up, and my dad's still on the phone. He's waiting for me to pick up the receiver. And I pick up the receiver, and we just look at each other. And I just remember this lump in my throat. I couldn't say anything. And it was after about 10 minutes or so, nothing came out. not even air. I think if I tried to speak at that moment, you'd just like hear a wheezing sound or something. And so I was just kind of frozen, and the receiver is on my ear. And I just look at my father. So 10 minutes pass, and then I put the receiver down, and the visit is over, and he goes back to his cell or wherever. So this summer, this memory came up, and I thought, wow, it was such a big deal in my life and in my father's life. But how come I never asked him about it? Like, it never occurred to me to ask him. So what happened after we left that day? What happened when you came back to your cell? What happened when you came back to your cell? Did you find it more difficult to stay in prison? Or questions like, did you have any friends when you were there? Did anyone support you? What kind of difficulties did you have? So when this memory came up, I was just flooded with questions. But I couldn't ask him anymore because he passed away 3 years ago. And so the regret that I had was, I didn't have the maturity of mind to ask those questions. It was really, somehow. So that word has been coming up for me a lot, maturity of mind, or how can we have a mature relationship? What does it mean to have a mature relationship with our sisters, our brothers, our parents? What does that look like? And since that memory came up and this topic has been coming up for me, this idea of maturity, because I find these trainings are quite helpful to develop a more mature, I guess, the kind of maturity of mind that will allow you to communicate with others on a deeper level, more meaningful level. And so I've shared this story once in a Dharma sharing, and I've found that I was surprised. Actually, I thought I was the only one who lacked the maturity to speak to my parents or to, have the kind of communication that will allow me to understand my parents on a deeper level. I thought I was the only one, but I was so surprised when I shared it. There were people in their 50s, 60s, 70s who had also never asked their parents about the most significant things that happen in their lives. Or even the simple question, what's your dream? What's your biggest dream? You have to be able to ask your parents or your child this question. It's an expression of that maturity of mind. So, do we have the maturity of mind to learn more about our loved ones? I was quite happy that I was able to recognize this, because I still have my mother. And now she's just bombarded with questions. I feel sorry for her sometimes, because all of the probing questions that I ask, it's not so easy to answer. Questions about jealousy, I don't know. I guess I don't have that much time left. What I'm trying to share, since I found I couldn't cover all 3 trainings in one, is that these trainings are trainable. Loving speech is trainable. Kindness is trainable. Compassion is trainable. Maturity of mind is trainable. And I'm very happy that wherever I look, I see in almost all sectors of our society, there's huge interest in communications. Or how to have better communication. But very often it's for diplomacy or job performance. But I think here we are more interested in connection. So for those of you who are interested in speech and science of speech, I hope that we can come up with a science of speech that can help us to heal, because I know there's a way of speaking that can help us heal, and that can help us mature and be more connected, become more whole. And maybe these 14 mindfulness trainings can be a starting point for this science of speech. I know there are many organizations, many groups out there who are interested in researching about speech or sharing about the kind of speech that is more healing for us, help us to connect more easily with others, like nonviolent communication. I think the other week I saw on the UN website, the United Nations website, it was quite interesting. There was a section about gender inclusive language. So the UN is training their employees to speak in such a way that is more gender inclusive. I was like, wow, that's a part of our training, loving speech, deep listening, how to share so that others feel more included. A part of our training here. Yeah, because we also want to develop inclusiveness. And so that's the UN. But I'm also very, I had a class, an English class for our sisters a few weeks ago, and we spoke about a little bit about the language of millennials. So I'm a bit impressed by the millennials as well in coming up with so many different words that kind of express the suffering of our time, or just to shed light or to try to change the situation just by words that they come up with. So one of the words that our sisters learned is mansplain. Mansplain means when a man is explaining something to a woman, but like in a very not so kind way, in a way that shows that she's quite inferior to him. This is just one word, huh? I'm sorry if I offend anyone by speaking about this word. So when I shared to the sisters this word, then right away they got very creative, and they're like, "Can we say monk's plane?" Or how about nun's plane? Or many other words. So, and quickly I realized that this wasn't about gender, or this issue about speaking down to another. It kind of spans gender or species. But what I wanted to say was that there's more awareness of speech in our society. And I think I'm grateful for so many kind of grassroots movements that introduce new ways of speaking, to new forms of speaking, new ways of speaking that help people to connect with one another more, and also to help people to understand themselves and others more, speaking in such a way that love and understanding are possible. I think my time's up. I guess my message today is loving speech is trainable. Truth is also trainable. Yeah, when we can recognize the fears, we can learn how to speak with non-fear. And I don't mean speaking in such a way that we can say anything and we're not afraid what other people might think. That's not what I mean when I say non-fear. We can learn how to speak with non-fear by recognizing the fears that motivate our speech and our actions. And how to help others to speak their truths with non-fear. Well, thank you very much for listening today. Enjoy your day. Oh, I wanted to say, after this we have walking meditation. And please take this opportunity to also communicate with yourself. Every step that we make is a form of communication with ourselves. Just to recognize how we're making the step, what's going on in our body, our feelings, our thinking, etc. And when we know how to come back to our steps, our walking, connecting with ourselves, with the community around us, with nature, we're also learning how to communicate, be in communion with everything. Yeah. Thank you. Enjoy your day.